Thinking Liberty, Episode 5.
Welcome to Thinking Liberty, the podcast that explores lifestyles of freedom-minded individuals. Join us as we discuss work, hobbies, health, learning, and more while living a travel-orientated lifestyle. Be curious, be open, be inspired, be free. And now, here are your hosts, Zach and Sarah Varnell.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Thinking Liberty. This is episode 5, and we're still here in our mobile studio in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm Zach.
And I'm Sarah, and today's episode I think is really interesting. We interviewed Hannah Beaujean, and she is a flight attendant, and she will tell us a little bit more about her experience, how she applied, kind of what the training and the application process was like, and what it's like to travel the world in the skies. I think it's a pretty interesting interview. One thing that she touched on that I thought was really interesting is that, when you travel, sometimes you don't have a lot of time in each place, and that's especially true for flight attendants, and I felt like I could relate to it a little bit just because with working, regular work hours during the week, sometimes, Zach and I are sometimes only in a place for a week or 2 weeks, and so we really only have 24 or 48 hours to really explore, and so you really have to focus and hone in on what's really important to you and what you really want to explore and what you really want to do. So Hannah was talking about how for her, she loves jewelry, so what she does is she goes on little jewelry hunting adventures and in each city that she goes to, which I think is a really cool way to have like a memento of all the places you've gone to, and it's a cool way to create memories. And for Zach and I feel like maybe we have too many things, but we try to visit coffee shops or breweries, or, we talk about barbecue all the time, so we try to check out the local food.
It's a good number of things.
Yeah, and hiking. Always hiking, too. So I think it's cool to think about, why you're traveling and what you want to get out of traveling, and whether you're doing that as you're living by being a flight attendant or whether you're doing it for fun. It's good to have an idea of what you want to do and what you want to see, and I thought that was a really cool thing that we touched on in the interview.
Yeah, and I really liked how Hannah not only gave her experience, but she was able to talk about how other flight attendants do it completely differently than her, and it really seems like a career that you can take and just make whatever you want out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But more on that in a minute. But right now, we just wanted to give you a quick update of what we've been up to in Chattanooga. And I know we're going to have a Chattanooga episode one day where we do a deeper dive into some of our favorite Chattanooga things. But just a real quick update from us. We've been using this trip here into Chattanooga to see friends and family, because this is where most of our friends from high school are, and our family lives in this area. So we've been getting together with them pretty regularly and being able to see some parts of Chattanooga that, have really grown up since we left and went away to college and then started working from Atlanta and finally doing the RV trip.
Yeah, when we were younger, we would always come to Chattanooga because, we're from small town Chickamauga. There wasn't a whole lot to do there. We did some things there and got to explore, and there's some hiking there. But really, for date nights, we would always make our way into Chattanooga, and so it's our old stomping grounds, and it's really, we look at it as kind of home. And so it's really cool to see the different areas growing and expanding and all the revitalization that's going on, and the new restaurants and the new shops and the new experiences that are there. So we've been trying to check out some of those, and we've also been trying to check out some of the old places as well.
Yeah. So far, I think my favorites have been, we went to a restaurant called Stir for a friend's birthday, and that was fun. I like the restaurant and all, but it was fun to meet up with friends that I haven't seen in probably 10 years and to meet some new friends. And, this kind of the bringing together of a couple different friend groups. So new faces and old faces.
Moving to the Flying Squirrel Bar was pretty cool afterwards, because it's definitely a lot more laid back kind of setting than Stir. Definitely different types of drinks. I'm really impressed by the beer list at Flying Squirrel, just because they have so many different type of varieties, and they have a lot of local Tennessee beers and some Georgia ones, and they really try to have like a good I guess, sampling of the beers that are available in the Southeast. And so I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and we've actually been there now twice during this last week.
During this visit.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely likes Flying Squirrel Bar too. That was great and a lot of fun. Very relaxed atmosphere just to hang out with friends and family.
Yeah, and then I got to have a sister night, which is really good because I feel like we definitely don't get enough time together. What with, she's in school and has a family, and then we're on the road all the time. So we always try to make it a priority to have some sister time whenever we do come back to town. So she and I went to Tupelo Honey, and I know there's one in Asheville, and Heather was saying that there's another one somewhere else, but I don't remember where. But this one is in Chattanooga, near, it's right inside kind of like the Warehouse Row area, and it's really good, and they have some unique cocktails and specialty house cocktails, but also just good Southern food. And then we left there and went to Bitter Alibi, which I've been wanting to go to for a while. A couple of trips through, Zach and I have said we would check it out, but we hadn't made it over there yet. So Heather and I went, and we really enjoyed our time there as well.
Yeah, and I think the last thing worth mentioning is, we went and met up with some family, and my grandfather was having a birthday party at the Chattanooga River Park. And that was always nice. I mean, you really can't go wrong just hanging out by the Tennessee River, and especially in, the nice parks they have, and they're really well kept. And, a couple of my nephews were there, and they were able to ride bikes and skateboard and all sorts of stuff. And we were...
And do tricks on their bike and give me many heart attacks.
Yeah. And we were able to just, hang out and catch up with each other. So it was a nice afternoon and very relaxing. Nice to see people again.
Yeah, definitely. And like Zach said, we do want to dive more into Chattanooga and just all the things that we love about it, because there's just so much. I mean, there's so much history there for us, and we really, treasure the city, and there's so much new things that we still have yet to check out that are on our list. So we'll definitely dive more into, what you would want to see and do and not miss if you were to ever visit Chattanooga, Tennessee.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our interview with Hannah Beaujean.
Thanks so much for willing to come on here and talk with us. I know you're very busy, and it's hard to find time to do this, so we really appreciate it.
I'm more than happy to. Yeah, and it's good to kind of get to know you guys a little bit more too, and what you guys are doing. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we don't chat enough, so this will be really good. So let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your background and hobbies.
Okay, cool. I am Hannah. I just turned 25 yesterday.
Oh, yay. Happy birthday, belatedly.
Yeah. I didn't even know I was 25, and then Jim was like, yep, that's the number that you are. So,
yeah, Sarah has to keep up for me too, because I have no idea how old I am.
Just like it happened, didn't happen, whatever. I am obsessed with jewelry. I am obsessed with my dog. I'm a very obsessive person. I'm obsessed with the color mint, and those are pretty much my primaries. So I live in a small town, which is funny because I have a big town job. I am newly married, having fun with that, and I love television. So that's a little bit about me.
Those are all awesome things. Yeah. So you said that you're obsessed with gems. So before you applied to flight attendant school, you actually went through a program in New York, right, where you became a licensed gemologist.
Yes, I did. And it was, it's an awesome career, and it was the perfect fit for me. When my mom's best friend is a flight attendant, that's what led me to even apply. And she's like, oh man, it's great insurance. You're never going to get fired, which, I mean, obviously is not completely true, but there's a good union behind you. And so there is a lot of job security, supposing something like 9/11 doesn't happen. So that's a really nice thing. Also, I hate asking for raises. And when you are in a customer service based field, they kind of reevaluate you yearly, and you kind of talk about like how much money they're willing to pay you more based on cost of living and just what should be happening to you. And I cannot handle that conversation.
Yeah, the
So,
negotiation process can be pretty rough.
yeah, I don't even want to, like, I mean, it should be like I'm worth it or I'm not, and you should be able to move on from there. It should be smooth for a boss. Like, they should feel like they're putting, but they have checks and balances to do on their end. So I hated that, and I knew that going to be a flight attendant, I would never have to ask those questions. Someone else is doing it for me. So she was like, apply, apply, apply. So I did, not thinking anything of it. Loving the job at the jewelry store. And then they came back and they're like, oh, we would want you to come and be a flight attendant. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I did go to the job that I was at before and kind of look at it and say, hey, what can we do here? And the reality was that I'm so young that it was a really good move for me to try and get through this training for a big company. Because even if I went back to jewelry in the future, the fact that I got through that training shows a lot. It's harder to do than get into, I think they said, like, Ivy League schools, just based on
I've heard they're very selective.
Yeah. My brother actually has applied, and I think eventually he'll get it, especially because right now I personally don't believe they're hiring in mass. They'll put an application out, but it seems like they're hiring for specific things that will bulk up their numbers, like the same as a college, hires a certain amount, or not hires, has a certain amount of veteran students or students of different ethnicities. A lot of times, I believe that the airline kind of does that as well. I've seen it a little bit just because it's a competitive field, and they want to look like they have diversity, which they do. So they're doing their job there. So that's. But I had gotten in soon enough that they took me, and I was like, okay, I just got to go and try this training.
Yeah, so what was the application process like?
I blocked out so much of it, but
I mean, it's been a couple years now, right, too?
Yeah, I've been doing this for about 3. It'll be 3 in October that I'm officially working, but I left for training in August.
Okay.
Yeah. So very soon. Well, it feels soon. Our lives are always a month in advance. Like our schedules we get now. Like now, I just got my schedule, I think yesterday. So we're kind of always moving ahead. So it's never like we're living in the current month.
Okay.
So that's interesting. But I applied, I set up a profile, and then I applied. You do this questionnaire and you answer just like question after question about like, if someone is dying, would you choose to save them or pay attention to your friend? Like just stuff that, you should know how to answer. If you have
like a personality kind of quiz.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some hard stuff on it too, but, and then if they like that, I think I have to send in references or have someone that they could call. And then if they, are good with all that and you're responding, then they give you a Skype interview. And it's just like some like recording asking you questions.
That's really cool. That's like pretty advanced, I think. That's really neat.
Yeah.
I've never heard of them doing Skype interviews before.
Yeah, it was cool, and I wanted to get it done, so I just like threw on a dress shirt and like sat in my room in like shorts and was like, okay, like the weathermen do.
Yep, they can't see the bottom half, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. So did that, and then you go down for a face-to-face interview, and the face-to-face interview is all friggin' day. You get there at like 9 in the morning and it goes till like 3 in the afternoon, but you traveled in the night before, you have to leave that day. It's just really stressful, and really you're with about 50 other applicants, and they're looking for, if they think you do a good job in a group, there's like 5 people in the room constantly watching you. They're asking you questions, you play games. Yeah.
So I guess they want to judge, how well you handle the interview process, how social you are, how, I guess, ethical you are, and things like that. It sounds like they want to just kind of get an overall view of your personality as a whole.
Yeah. And then you do in the same day, you do a smaller group interview where it's like you and 5 people. It's kind of weeding out, like, if you're too abrasive, if you're too quiet, all that different stuff. So you do that. And then they lead you down a hallway and are like, okay, see you later. Or, okay, let's go get your fingerprints done. And if you get the fingerprints, you pretty much know you're going to get offered the job. But then you have to make it through training, so.
For how long between the interview did you hear back about whether or not you were going to go to the training?
I knew that I had the job after getting fingerprinted, I was pretty sure. And then I got that, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I got the definite. But then you have to set up a training date, and then that can range depending on how busy they are. I went, I think I didn't get a training. It was like 3 months or 4 months, because the whole process took about 7 months. So it was a while.
So, and for the interview and for the training, were you having to travel different cities, or was it the city you would have been stationed out of?
Oh no, they fly you down to Dallas, which was weird because, like, I don't fly alone all that much. And then it was like my first time, and you have to dress up and like you want to be like presentable, but you just flew. And I remember the time I was coming back, there was this guy who was sitting next to me, and I just like started talking, and it was very gross because he had spilled Coke. The flight attendant gave him like the drink of this Coke and one little napkin, and I will never forget, he was just taking this napkin that was soaked in Coke and wiping it all over the tray table, just like over and over again while he was talking. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're making that so sticky.
So just very absentmindedly not paying attention. Yeah,
so don't touch your tray tables before you wipe them off. Like, if there's any way you can wipe them off, please do, people, because that's just... So I got bussed down there, and you meet some interesting people, and then you fly back. It's to Dallas is where their headquarters is. It's pretty simple to get down and stuff. They give you a lot of instructions, and yeah.
Was it the same for training?
Yes, so you go to the same place for training. The only thing is you do go down, so after you get accepted, they set up another thing where they fly you down, which is to get physical, and you get pee tested. I think I even got blood drawn. I don't totally remember, but I really think I did. And then you also have to do like weird agility testing. Like, there was 2 peg boards, and you had to like move. So one was on your left and one was on your right, and you had to use your hands to move the pegs from the left to the right, going up the board. It was very interesting, and I had no clue why they made me do this.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I was like, okay, let's move some pegs here. So
So they didn't explain the purpose for it or anything. They were just like, here, move these.
No, I mean, one of the things was they made you touch an overhead bin. Like, they had a bin set up as high as an overhead bin would be, and like I knew what that was for. And I think they had you like not run, but like walk maybe a little bit on a treadmill or something. But I mean, the peg thing, I did not understand, but did it. So
So what is the purpose of touching the overhead bin? Just to make sure you can reach it? Okay.
Yeah. There are people who are, I'd say, too short, because you have to be able to lift stuff. So I think if you're under 5'2", I don't know how they like would not hire you, because it's kind of discrimination, but I think that they would offer you a different position if they really wanted you, because you have to be able to
be at the front gate or something.
Yeah, you have to be able to lift bags into it. So I'm 5'4", and I mean, it's hard sometimes. These people get on and they're like, here you go, and you're like, oh well, I'm not supposed to lift that for you, but I'll try and help you. And then they have like rocks in their bag, and you're like, oh
goodness.
So I know you're assigned to airport that's relatively close to your house, but how does that work? Do you get to request a base, or you kind of assigned one, or
Yeah.
what goes on there?
When you go through training, you get to it's all seniority based, and that's age based in training because no one actually has seniority with the company yet. So they base it on age, and the older you are, you get the first preference, and they make you list your preferences of where you want to go. And I listed, so I'm for American, so American in the East Coast covers New York, which is JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. Then they cover D.C., which is D.C., which is also called Ronald Reagan, Dulles International, and BWI, which is where I like to fly out of, which is Thurgood Marshall International Airport. And then they have Philly and Charlotte on the East Coast, Miami. But yeah, I had choices coming out, going into training of Dallas, which is their biggest base, Chicago, LAX, DC, New York, or Miami. And I only wanted DC because I live in an area called Lancaster, which is actually my main airport is DCA, which is the Ronald Reagan, and that's actually 2.5 hours from my house. And the Baltimore is 1 hour and 30 minutes from my house. So I like to fly out of there the most. But yeah, you put a preference and you ask for it, and they either give it to you or they give you something else.
So would there be any sort of process that you could apply to if they gave you somewhere that was too far for you, or would they still let you live somewhere else and then fly you down to that location?
Tons of people at American are commuters. So for instance, there's a ton of people who live in Denver, Colorado, and they are based out of Dallas. So they just get on a plane at the closest airport and go from Denver to Dallas, and then they work out of Dallas. It's just commuting. I would never. A lot of people do it. They actually fly to work flying. I drive to work. I think driving is better. It's hard when you first get hired because you have certain, you don't want to be late, you don't want to have any issues. So if you want to go home and you're on call and they can call you at 3 a.m, then you can't get a flight maybe in time for your flight that you're supposed to be on or stuff like that. So it's easier to live close, but you are allowed to live wherever.
Oh, that's a nice perk.
Yeah.
So how often do you fly, and when do you fly in sections where you're busy flying for a week at a time, or how does that work?
I fly about 15 days out of the month, and then I have 15 off. I'll work for 3 days and I'll be off for 2 days, and then I'll work for 2 days and be off for 3 days, and then I'll work for 1 day and be off for 2 days, just kind of that kind of thing. So you're out for little stretches and home for little stretches. You can do whatever you want, though. You can move your schedule that you can work 5 days straight and come home and be off for 5 days. It's really, really flexible if you can get people, if the base, it's really, really flexible. It just takes a lot of work, I should say.
So just a lot of coordination with the other attendants and your immediate supervisors?
Tons, yeah.
So back to the training and all that, what kind of stuff did you have to do in the training after you had been hired?
Well, after you get hired, you still have to go through the training, and you have to take tests. So they teach you all this stuff. I don't know. It's kind of like a trade school. Yeah, it's very much like a trade school. They teach you all this stuff, and then you basically just have to spit it back out. So they'll have you memorize a plane. They'll go over all the information about the plane. They'll tell you what you do on that plane, and then they'll have a test, and they'll ask you to answer it all. And then if you don't get 90% or above, you failed that test, and you can't fail a test more than once. I mean, you can't fail the same test more than once. It's actually quite difficult they shove a lot of information into a very short time.
So are you certified or assigned to certain types of planes, or can you really do anything?
I can go on any plane that I want to. My base only flies really 2 planes though, which is the 737 and the Super 80, which American has said they're going to discontinue the Super 80, so really it's primarily the 737, but the Super 80's an old gem, so they've kept it around longer.
So, and you mentioned briefly that you were a part of a union. So is there any sort of, requirements and to be part of that? Or is it basically if you get it, accepted to the company, they accept you also?
Yeah, it's pretty much if you get accepted to the company, they accept you also. They do require dues because it is like a business. They do have to, but it's not anything to really even think about. It's really no big deal. And everyone...
And they take care of all.
Yeah, I don't know any flight attendant with American that's not a part of the union. The union is pretty much every single American Airlines employee or American Airlines employed flight attendant.
And then they take care of all the negotiation and stuff that you hate so much. So.
Yes, they do. And they have your back. Like, if the company does something that, like, if they delay you, they like to delay things and then not give concrete dates. Like, they'll just... concrete times, I mean. So if you're delayed at 11 in the morning, but they don't want to cancel the flight and they want their times to look good in the computer system, they'll just continue to push that delay back for an hour when each hour comes up. So they can just leave you sit and they don't really have to do anything. They can just keep doing that. So the union then steps in and says, there are rules, like you can't leave flight attendants just sit in an airport for hours on end. So it's good to have them.
So do you have to continually take any exams or training to keep, your license or your certification or whatever?
Yeah,
current?
Yep. Every year you go back and you do a recurrent training.
How long is the recurrent training process?
It's 2 days, and it's making sure that you know how to evacuate the planes, all the planes that you're certified on. So I think I have 6 that I have to do each year. And it's pretty quick, though. It's just like a little refresher. I actually kind of like it because it's good to go back and go over everything.
You end up being with the same people that you trained with before, or is it usually completely new faces?
It's usually completely new faces because everyone who ever has been, like, all the people that got hired in 1999 during the month of October, they can go too. So it's like you, maybe a classmate that you had, but it's just anyone who was hired around the same time as you from all the years.
So do you have certain locations that you fly to regularly, or do you choose your trips? How does that work?
The trips are set up, but, like, you do go typical places. Like, pretty much you'll always go through either one of the big bases for American. So either Miami, Dallas, Chicago, or Phoenix right now is pretty heavy. So you'll always go through one of them, and then you can go to a smaller city. But you do get to pick, like, they have like 60 trips, and then you kind of can pick those trips based on what airport you want to leave out of. I'm not picky at all because I just want to leave out of Baltimore, so I'm like, give me whatever's out of Baltimore. So lately I've been going to Phoenix like all the time.
And if people were interested in, like, picking trips and then having time off in the city that they end up in, is that a possibility, or do you always end up back at your home base?
You always end up back at your home base. I mean, so you'll go for 2 days and you'll work 2 flights on the first day, let's say. And then those 2 flights will be flying hours. And then you get into that. When you're done with the second flight, you get into the city that's a layover. Sit time is where you get to the, like, airport and you sit in the airport for a little bit. But when you reach a destination after your flights are done for that day, that's a layover, and then you'll get there, and maybe you'll have at most 30 hours, but typically it runs from 9 hours to, I'd say, 22 hours that you'll be in the city.
So if you were somewhere pretty interesting that you wanted to get out and see, that'd be about the amount of time you have to do it in?
Yes. Yep. And some people are really good at doing that. I am not super good at it. But since I like jewelry so much, this is what I do. Like, let's say you love, I don't know, fishing, or you love car shows. There might be a local car show. So I just, or like a cool, I don't know, where I live, there's this one car dealership that has like a little showroom, which is actually open to the public, and it's kind of cool. But like, you can just Google, like, I love jewelry, so I always Google pawn shops near me, and I go and look and see if there's a pawn shop, and then I'll just go like shopping there. So kind of condenses the going out, but still makes it like enjoyable for me.
Yeah, so if you had like one thing that you really loved to do when you were traveling, like visiting bookshops or coffee shops or hiking, you could quickly find a place and just squeeze that into a couple hours in your layover time.
Totally. And some flight attendants, I mean, they do more. Some flight attendants will go out to a bar, and then they'll, stay up all night. And I like my sleep. I'm going to be honest. I'm all about that sleep. So
I love sleep too. Yeah. I'm not a late person.
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite as crazy for me, but I try.
So then on your time off, or let's say you're somebody who schedules your time off to be, maybe a week at a time or more so than a few days, is it possible to take advantage of your flight attendant perks to go to a different city that maybe you just want to visit and stay there and fly back?
Oh, yeah, totally. A lot of flight attendants do that. Non-revving is what it's called, where you're a non-revenue passenger. So, like, if you show up and the plane has an empty seat, you can get on it. Now, it is really difficult because there's a lot of people who like to non-rev, and there's a lot of people who you're competing against, and there's rules, and you have to, like, get there early. But, yeah, people do it all the time. People go awesome places. There's a flight attendant who was really great. She goes to, like, Greece and Morocco, just everywhere she can go to. And then, obviously, like, the Caribbean areas are a little bit more simple to get in and out of. There's quite a few flights a day. I didn't go for fun, but on one of my layovers, I did go to Paris. So, I mean,
oh, wow.
Yeah, wherever American can fly, you can get yourself there.
And when you non-rev, is that going to be completely free for the flight attendant, or is there any sort of, fee to consider?
There are, like, taxes, but all in all, it's not much at all. So it's not like, if you're pinching pennies even, it's not like you have to super be like, oh, this is going to be an extra. It's very inexpensive.
Yeah, compared to a full-price flight especially.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I've heard of some flight attendants also staying at one base for maybe a few years and then switching just because they wanted to live somewhere different. Is that a pretty easy thing to do, or is that a pretty arduous process?
I think it's arduous. I don't ever want to have to go through it. I'm like, no. But people do it all the time. They love to do it. Actually, there was this awesome flight attendant out of, she lived right near Philadelphia, and she actually transferred to New York, and she's been up there for a while. She seems to be liking it. And people do it all the time. Dallas is a really inexpensive place to live. So a lot of new hires will start out other places, and they'll be like, man, I want to have my own place. I want to have my own life. I want a little bit less of this, like, because it can be expensive to live where the bases are, like New York or D.C. So then flight attendants will kind of group up and have, like, houses together. But some of them are, like, sick of that. They, are a little bit older or want to be more established, so they'll move to the place where the housing is a little bit cheaper. So a lot will go to Dallas.
So if somebody wanted to move overseas and become an overseas flight attendant, is it kind of the same process, or is there extra steps involved?
There are flight attendants who commute from overseas, but we're based in the U.S. We fly to other places, and they have gate agents there, but we are U.S.-based flight attendants, with the exception of people who commute from, like, Hawaii. People will come in from Puerto Rico. I don't think I know of anywhere else. I think maybe there's someone who's in, like, somewhere in Africa. But most of us, I'd say 90% of us live in the U.S. because the jobs, you can't start out in a different country and come to the U.S. and then go back home. You start in the U.S. and go out and then come back.
Okay. So if somebody just wanted to go overseas a lot and select those routes, would it be the same, just select those cities and select those trips, or would they have to get a special certification to do that?
Nope. If they're certified on the plane that will fly them over there, they're good to go. I will say it's a very different. I'm a primarily domestic flight attendant. I like flying domestic. I want to get on a plane. I want to get on it 3 or 4 times a day, and I want to be on flights that are under an hour. I don't care how many times we board a plane. I don't want to be in the air for more than 6 hours. So it's just like after a while, you're just breathing the same air. You're on a tube, so it's kind of, I'm not into that for long stretches of time. Whereas my mom's friend who got me into this, she loves flying international. She wants to be on a plane for 14 hours at a time. The layovers in international are a little bit longer because you're on the plane longer. So like instead of 12 hours to 22 hours, it's going to be minimum of 24 hours to, I think, 72. But that would be on that really, really crazy end.
Okay, so I guess it's really like whatever your personality or interests are, you can pretty much customize this career to that.
Yeah, you really can.
So have you had any particularly crazy experiences while you've been in the air? Maybe unruly people or just wacky people?
There's always crazy people. I don't know if it's like something that's on my forehead that's like, I am from Pennsylvania Dutch area. Please don't do anything crazy. Like, I feel like I never get any of the weird stuff. Like, even turbulence. I remember the worst flight I had was this little, 1-hour flight from, I think it was from Boston to New York or something like that. And it was real, real bumpy, but I still did. I could hold on. I had less people in the area that I was serving, so I could still do my service. It was, so nothing crazy there. And then, someone swore at me while leaving the plane, but honestly, I don't even remember. It didn't even matter. It was just comical because I think he said that it was our fault. You made me late.
Yes,
wow.
because flight attendants are the ones that control the schedules, yes.
And the weather.
And the weather, yeah.
And I definitely want to miss half my layover with all you guys.
Yeah, some of the best people in the world grouped together in a tiny tube.
So, yeah, but it's all been pretty good. People, they do such silly things like bags go in the overhead, wheels or handles first. Because we want to put the most bags in that overhead as we possibly can. So wheels or handles first are what make it. So you'll get people on who just insist on putting their bag the other way. And then you ask them to move it. Oh, it doesn't fit. Then you do it. It's like, come on now. I'm 3 inches shorter than you. But other than that, they do really funny things. Parents with kids who don't have anything. They just have their child and nothing. It's well, what do you do at restaurants?
Child's gonna get bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always one of those people that kind of groans a little bit when a baby comes on board. It's I know you need to travel with your children sometimes, but please, I'm praying, please don't cry, I want to sleep.
Yeah. And then there's some babies that you don't even know are there, and there are some babies who make themselves known. So the only thing I worry about with kids is I'm so worried that they're I'm so oh gosh, oh don't cry, I'm so worried about you, oh no, because I'm always worried their eardrum is gonna burst or something. Because how would you know if they can't? I'm I don't know how. I know young kids can get ear infections, and I think they can get them younger than so I'm always real paranoid about that. So
yeah, because they can't communicate what's going on, so.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'm oh no, your baby's eardrum's going to be burst. I don't care if it cries. I'm so sorry.
So have you had any trips that you've been able to take that were particularly fun for you, or that you had a great layover? I know you mentioned Paris.
Honestly, well, there were street bunnies. There were some bunnies on the street. Like some guy had bunnies for people to pet. That was about as exciting as it got for me.
And what city was that in? Was that in Paris or?
Yeah, that was in Paris. I'm really into animals, so like when there's like I get more excited about like when there's a dog on a flight, and I remember that dog like more so than the layover.
Yeah, I get excited about bunnies too. We've been pretty lucky with our RV locations recently, and
nice.
Several times there's been like little families of bunnies that just kind of hover around near us. So every time we go outside, we get to see them, and I'm just like, "Oh, Zach, the bunnies!"
I know what you mean. So yeah, so primarily I'll like text my husband and be like, "Oh, here's this dog, isn't it cute?" Or I just had a dog on the flight. But about layover cities, Portland, Oregon's awesome. There's no taxes, and there's a Ross nearby. Can't hate that. I really, really liked Seattle. I was expecting there to be a ton of dogs. Like, I was all geared up to be like, can I pet your dog? Can I pet your dog? Where's your dog from? But there wasn't really any, so that was kind of a bummer. But the jewelry there was awesome. And there was an open market, which was really cool. There was this Columbus, Ohio I went to, and I didn't get to stay there long, but the hotel was really nice, and it seemed like it would have been an awesome city to walk around in. Not a big fan of Texas, anywhere in Texas, except for, where's the Riverwalk?
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yes, I was actually going to say, if you haven't been to San Antonio, go there because it is amazing.
Yeah, San Antonio is actually worth it. Denver, Colorado is just pretty, so, like, it's nice. But, I mean, if you take the time, you'll find something to love everywhere. And if you want to sleep, you'll sleep. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. I am going to loop you back to Paris again and just ask, were you able to do any jewelry hunting or shopping while you were in Paris?
no. For the first, like, year and a half that I flew, which that was in the first year and a half, I didn't kind of have my groove down. So I didn't even think about looking at pawn shops and jewelry shops. I literally would just get in, watch some TV, and sleep. I really believe your body takes a big adjustment becoming a flight attendant. You're working, like tomorrow I'm getting up at, like, and leaving the house at, like, 3 a.m. And then I'm working till, like, our time, 3 in the afternoon. So it's, like, a 12-hour shift. And so you're constantly changing, like, your body clock and stuff. So it took me a long time to, like, kind of get in the groove of that and figure out what was worth doing and what I actually really wanted to do. So then I did finally figure out, like, oh yeah, going to jewelry stores is a brilliant idea. But in Paris, the one flight attendant told me she wouldn't talk to me the next day if I didn't go do something. Because it's called a slam clicker. When you just sleep, you just slam your door. And that's the end of that. So I was like, yeah, I'm pretty much a slam clicker. Sorry, girl. And she was like, well, I won't be speaking to you tomorrow unless you have proof that you went out. So I jumped on
You took a bunny picture, and you were like, all right, this is my proof.
Yeah, I jumped on the subway. I think I was out for maybe an hour and a half. I did get a souvenir. Actually, I got a sex dice, which that's kind of funny. And I got a little train for, like, my kids, if I ever have them, that have, like, little, like, our last name in these little letters, like in a train.
Oh, that's really cute.
In wood. Yeah, I've never seen it in America, so I was like, oh, this is a cool souvenir. So, yeah.
So they already had your name on there, or did you have it custom
They have,
done?
like, a ton of letters, and then you pick out the letters, and you can hook them together. Yeah, so it's so cute. So I'll have to have someone in the U.S., or I'll have to order some, make, like, whatever the child's initials are, but I got my last name for them, and, like, the caboose part, so. And
Yeah, that sounds adorable.
Yeah, it is pretty cute, so.
So I guess our last big question for you then is, what are some tips that you might have for anyone that's new to the program or that's looking to apply?
Okay, so when you travel, take everything. Like,
That is like the opposite advice that I've heard about most travel.
yeah, well, don't listen to anyone. Like, I don't know. It depends on who you are. But I've learned to condense, definitely, but I do take everything. Like, I definitely, like, I have, well, food-wise, I should say, because you can take food into the airport, and people constantly are, like, so bummed that the food's so expensive, and then they're, like, starving. And so, like, go to the store, get yourself some cheap peanuts and a Kit Kat bar, and then you're good to go. So, I have, like, tons of silverware with me, like plastic silverware. You can get plastic silverware at the store, so just carry it in case you need it. I have, like, I don't ever change my suitcase. So, like, what's in my car is in my suitcase that's been in the suitcase for the last 3 years. It's, like, 2 pairs of yoga pants, one for when I'm fat and one for when I'm skinny. A shirt that smells disgusting because I sleep in it, a shirt that doesn't smell disgusting, a long sleeve shirt, a short sleeve shirt, and an extra uniform. So, and tons of pantyhose because you always rip them and you're supposed to wear them.
Yes, that's the worst.
Yeah, so like that's pretty much, oh yeah, so if you ever have to, the cool thing is if you ever have to wear pantyhose, you know that Goodwill and like Salvation Army, they like sell pantyhose that haven't been used. They're like still in the packaging. I mean, you can get them used, but I wouldn't do that. But anyways, so if you get a job where you need a lot of pantyhose and you're sick of paying for them, take a look at Goodwill, man.
Yeah, I'm always having to stuff extras into my bag whenever I have to go on site to a client. Because I just feel weird wearing a dress without them. Like, even if it's not required, I just feel weird.
Yeah. I did one time, and this girl was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "In life, you don't not wear pantyhose." So I was like, okay. Yeah. What else is there? So I carry hot sauce and but the other thing is I'm kind of like the mom on the plane. So I have like a huge bag and it's stuffed to the gills because someone's going to get on and go, "Darn it, I need a scissors." And I'm going to whip it out and they're going to look at me like I'm a crazy person, but they are so darn happy that I have that scissors. So
That's awesome.
I don't know.
So what about for somebody who maybe isn't a flight attendant and would be interested in becoming one, or specifically somebody who'd be interested in using this job to their advantage to travel?
Oh yeah,
more?
apply everywhere. Even commuter, like not commuter, the smaller airlines. Try and start there. I mean, it sucks, but it gives you a foot in the door, and sometimes it works out to your advantage. And just like there are so many people who just go. I mean, I have used it to my advantage. My husband had a work conference and I followed him there, and we went to Chicago for that. It was real nice. Had deep dish pizza that I never had before. So be willing to take risks. Like if you're not sure that you're going to get where you need to go, have a backup, have somewhere else to go. You're non-rebbing, so there's nothing guaranteed. Like you could totally miss the flight because they could have oversold it by 10 people in the last 5 minutes. So, you just have to be ready to go with it. I don't know if there's anything else that I can really think about. A pilot had a cool thing. A pilot wears this really expensive gold watch because if you are going to travel internationally, it's good to have something to leverage money-wise if you would ever get in a sticky situation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, I mean, gold is a universal thing. So, and it is worth stuff to everybody. So he wears I think it was him and his wife, he said, like to travel. And so he wears a gold watch that if you get stuck somewhere and you need that money, you can get it.
That's really interesting.
And I mean, that's for definitely more, I mean, there's more, let's say, advanced places to go. But it was definitely a good little thing to throw into the mix and kind of remind yourself of.
Yeah, especially for the less touristy destinations.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of countries where it can be hard to get money, or maybe there's limits on the ATMs. And then when, years back, Greece, shut down their ATMs basically, or was, allowing a very small amount to be withdrawn. That happened almost with no warning. So I think that's good advice.
So I'm all about the gold to begin with.
All right, so thanks again to Hannah for joining us on this episode, and thanks to everyone for listening and tuning in. I think that there were a lot of good points that we brought up during this interview, and I actually started doing a little bit of research about becoming a flight attendant just because I was really interested in everything that Hannah was explaining to us. It's kind of crazy how intensive the process is for people. I found this one article from Business Insider that we'll link to on the show notes page for anyone that's interested in applying, because it has some really good tips and advice for people for going through the process. They also mentioned that it's reportedly harder to get invited to the Delta flight attendant training than it is to get into Harvard University, which I thought was pretty crazy. I think part of the reason for that is just that there's a lot of competition for it. So you really want to make sure that you stand out when you apply. And this article gives a lot of tips for that. So definitely check it out. Of course, one thing is, like Hannah was saying, a lot of people, associate traveling and being a flight attendant as being a job for people who love to travel. But one thing that I was reading about is that everyone who applies says, I love people and I love to travel, and that's why they want to do that job. So if you're thinking about doing that, try to come up with another reason for why you want to, and what makes you interested in it and what makes you passionate about it, and that'll help you to really stand out.
Yeah, so we'll put that and any other resources we dig up on the show notes page at thinkingliberty.com/5. And also be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/listentl and on Twitter at twitter.com/listentl.
Yeah, and definitely, review us, rate us. We have our page on iTunes and Google Play, and we're, on Stitcher and all of those other sites. So if you're going to those places to listen to us, download it, listen, review, rate. Please leave us some comment and feedback. We really want to hear from you, our listeners. If you have any further questions about this interview or any other interviews, or any questions for us about our travels or living in an RV, don't hesitate to reach out. We're pretty quick responders on Facebook and Twitter, so reach out. We definitely want to hear from you.
Yeah, like Sarah said, please, in these early days, it's so helpful for a new podcast to be getting ratings and reviews, especially on iTunes. We already have a couple, and we thank you guys so much for leaving those. But, we could always use some more, and those will help us to get on the new and noteworthy list, possibly, which is a great thing for a new podcast to gain exposure and just really get Thinking Liberty into the ears of more people.
And the more listeners we get and the more people that hear us, the better interviews we'll be able to get and provide to you guys.
Absolutely. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Liberty. Subscribe to the show for free on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher at thinkingliberty.com. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, articles by Zach and Sarah, and more. We'll see you next time.